This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning, everybody, and a very, very, very cold welcome to andBeyond Ngala, especially to all of the kids out there in the world. We are super lucky to have started off with such an amazing sight of this leopard. We went down into the riverbed to look where Nikki left him last night, and we heard pushbox alarm calling, and luckily a vehicle, Ron and Sean were right here to be able to see it. So we've started the day off incredibly well. We're going to be basically just sticking around, following him to see what he gets up to this morning. So we're really excited. It is exceptionally cold this morning. I've got 4 layers of shirts on. This leopard doesn't seem to be affected too much by the cold. At this time of morning, we're getting to our dew point, which means that all of the moisture in the air is falling down onto the grass, which will make it wet, and it will make that leopard even colder. So I'm surprised it hasn't decided to get up and move into a slightly better area, like an open patch of grass or maybe on the road. See, it looks like he's starting to wake up. So quite a lot of francolins and spurfowls that are starting their day, and they always start off very noisily, and so he's just picking up his head and responding to those sounds every now and again. Judy, I agree. It took us maybe about 10 minutes and we were sitting in front of this leopard. Sometimes it's not like that, as you all are aware. I mean, it's incredibly difficult to find a leopard sometimes because of their elusive nature. But this one in particular is even trickier to find because his behavior is quite sporadic. So, I mean, he is being left alone by his mother from pretty much a year old, so he's been trying to figure things out a lot, and he's got lots of energy. He's still trying to figure out how to hunt effectively, and so he moves very oddly. I mean, sometimes you can almost predict what a cat and a leopard is going to be doing. This leopard does pretty much the complete opposite. He changes direction constantly. He hunts at weird times of the day. He hunts weird things. And so it's always a treat to be able to find him and spend this quality time with him, which we definitely will be doing. And the nice thing is that we can just start to see the sun hitting the very top of the trees behind us. So within the next 20-30 minutes or so, there's going to be a lot of light on him. Just look at how well, I mean, when Owen zooms out like that, look how difficult it is for us to focus on the same spot and actually see him. And that's exactly what these leopards are known for, is that camouflage that they have. This beautiful golden color on his coat, the spots on his head, on his shoulders, on his back, all just help make him blend in with his surroundings. And I mean, if we didn't know that he was there, I wonder how many of you would be able to see a leopard in the frame if we wouldn't tell you where it is. I mean, he is absolutely incredibly camouflaged. Whilst we wait for this leopard to wake up and get some morning sun, what we'll do is send you across to Djuma and see what Lauren's plans are for the morning.
Good morning, good morning. Welcome on board your drive for today, your chilly, cold sunrise safari. My name is Lauren and I do have BK on camera this morning, and it's 15 degrees Celsius and 58 It's 14 degrees Celsius and 58 degrees Fahrenheit. So I've got my gloves on and I am ready for a very cold morning. Now, it's your drive, so you must talk to us. Send in your questions, anything you want to know about the environment here, or the animals here, or anything weird and wonderful that we may see. There's an email address that's going to pop up, but do send them to kidsquestions@wildearth.tv, and we'll do our very, very best to answer them. Now, Tristan and I are both out this morning. There was guinea fowl going crazy. So I wonder if there's a predator in the area. I wonder if there is a spotted cat. Tristan's going one way, I'm going the other way, and we hope to find one for you today. I really, really am missing my spots. I've always said since the start, don't get predator obsessed, but I am a little bit obsessed with the cats. I want to see everything, but when I don't see my spotted cats for a while, I do miss them. It's nice to catch up with them every once in a while. So let's see what we can see today. Now that we're in winter, the movements of animals, the behavior of animals, and their general daily routine is going to change. The vegetation is still very, very thick here in comparison to other parts of South Africa, but it's definitely starting to recede. Even if we just look here, BK, just at this area, you can see that the leaves are starting to go brown. The grass is very short here. It's already starting to recede. Plants are starting to die, and trees are just generally not looking so thick. They're losing their leaves. Leaves are falling all around us. It's almost like autumn or the fall in other countries. The leaves are just dropping. Oh, this marula is already bare. So the vegetation's definitely not as thick. And yeah, you're 13 years old and you're asking about scary situations. I've been in many, many scary situations underwater, as I'm also a marine biologist and I worked in the ocean for a very long time. But you're asking about here in the reserve. I have been, but it's mostly because it's my fault. I think a good enough guide can admit to you if you're in a situation that you maybe shouldn't be in, then it's your fault. You should never blame the animal. Any guide that blames the animal is not a good guide. So, when we do bushwalks, you want to walk in such a way. We used to walk out here. We used to go live on foot, but we always had a game scout with us for protection. But you don't ever want the animal to know that you're there, but that's not always possible. So you've got to gauge the weather, the wind. Which way is your smell going to travel? Which way is your voice going to travel? Which path are you going to take? What trajectory is the animal taking? How can you get round the animal without the animal noticing you? That's the plan, but trust me, it doesn't always. Oh, look at the leaves falling. It's like autumn. But yes, that doesn't always go to plan. And if the animal spots you, it happens. You need to know, you need to be able to know what to do when the animal does spot you and how you react. And it's a training process. But I did have a very close encounter with an elephant once. My game scout was with me. We were all very, very safe. But it was a slightly unhappy bull. And he saw us and he didn't like the fact that they were there. And he did charge us. And that was slightly scary. Nothing happened. Nothing bad happened. We knew exactly how to handle it, but it was a slightly scary situation, I would say. But most scary situations are because you have put yourself in that situation. You always need to read the environment, read the weather, read the conditions, read the behavior of the animal. You've got to take in everything. You can't just say, oh, there's an elephant. You've got to think, okay, there's an elephant. Where's it going? I need to make sure I move my vehicle out of the pathway of the elephant. What's the elephant's behavior like? What's it doing? Is it feeding? Is it maybe chasing females if it's a naughty boy? Is it angry? Has it maybe had a dispute with herd members? Sorry, I'm not being rude. I'm just looking at the ground for tracks. Or is this a young elephant full of beans? Is it an older elephant who knows how to handle himself? Then you've got to take in things like the wind. Which way is the wind blowing? Because is it downwards? Is it going upwind? So many things that you must take into consideration. Okay, this is a very important junction for us, so I need to get my head to the ground to look for tracks. And as I do that, we're going to send you across to Tristan to say good morning.
Indeed, you are going to be sent across to us. It's quite nice that we are able to now finally join. We had a little tech issue on our vehicle, and so it took us a little bit to get out and about, but it's a beautiful, beautiful morning, and you can see we're already spending it with the Wildebeest. Now, for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Tristan. On camera, I've got Davy.
Hello.
Davy, nice to be back with you again. It's been a while since Davy and I have been together, but as you can see, we are sitting with this herd of wildebeest that spends all its time on this open clearing. It's so nice to see them. I haven't been obviously spending a lot of time in the bush, and it's good to catch up with this particular herd. The little ones have grown a lot. The last time I saw them, their horns were tiny, and now they're getting quite a big sort of set that are growing, and they've really grown up quite a lot, and probably past the most dangerous point in their lives. Obviously have things like lions and leopards, but once they get to the size that they are now, it's quite tricky for even leopards to bring them down. So it's really just the lions that they would have to worry about. But the light this morning is absolutely beautiful as well, and I think it's probably because yesterday evening there was an area that was being burnt. Now you might be wondering why they would burn somewhere. Well, what they do is they burn things called fire breaks, and fire breaks are little patches of land that will be burnt on the edges normally of a property. And the reason why they do that is that if a fire breaks out naturally, because we're going into the dry time of the year, where the grass is going to be very, very dry and easy to catch fire, if that starts to happen, a fire break basically provides a boundary for that fire. It stops the fire from crossing and going to another area. And so it's a very good thing to do in this time of the year, and particularly because we had really good rains in the summer, which means the grass has grown very, very long, and so there's a lot of what we call fuel for the fire to burn. So it's a good thing to do. But that smoke drifted across, and it made the light incredibly soft, and it seems like a bit of that smoke is still around. With the cold winter air in the night, it kind of pushes the smoke down, and you get this sort of hazy layer, which gives you this beautiful kind of soft light that you can see away to the east. Now, this morning, I wasn't actually going to plan to sit with these wildebeest, but when I was sitting in camp waiting for our car to get sorted, I heard guinea fowl alarm calling in the area that we're in. I said to Lauren to go and have a little look, and as we got into quarantine, I could hear them again, roughly where I am sitting right now. So I was just sitting here to see if maybe, just maybe, we picked up another call for those guinea fowl, or maybe an alarm call of another animal. I always find at this time of the day, and then again at sunset, being on quarantine and just sitting quietly for a little bit can often bring you some success. There's a lot of animals that mill about on these open clearings around the sunrise and sunset, and so that often attracts some of the predators, and so it's good just to sit like this, because they can be, an alarm call, or even they themselves can appear. So it's a good strategy to use, that's for sure. So, Ruben, age 9, this is a very good question. You're asking about birds alarm calling. How do we know what an alarm call is versus when they're just calling for territory or to attract a female or just calling for the sake of calling? So the thing about an alarm call, Ruben, is that it is different sound to their normal call. Most birds will have a signature call, or a call that they make, much like if you speak to your mom or your dad, or if you have any brothers or sisters, their voice is different to your voice. And it's the same for birds. They have a call that is their own. But when they alarm call, they generally make a different sound. And the reason why the alarm call is different to the normal call is because they're trying to tell everybody, including their friends and their fellow birds, that there is something that is dangerous in the area and that they must be careful. And so if it was the same as their normal call, then no one would get that message. So it's like basically us talking and then us shouting. When we shout, our voice changes a little bit, and that's to try and warn somebody that there's maybe something dangerous around. So that's why they do it, and every bird has a different type of alarm call. The guinea fowls squawk and make all kinds of noise. And the thing is their alarm call can be very similar to when they are looking to make babies. But this time of the year is too late for them to be having babies. So that's why we know it's not that call, and that it's more than likely that they've seen a predator. Now, the problem with guinea fowl is that a predator could be a leopard, it could be a lion, it could be wild dogs, it could be a bird of prey, it could be a snake. So there's a lot of things that make a guinea fowl upset. So it's not always reliable when we're looking for our cats to use guinea fowls, but it's always a good thing to go and investigate. You never know what you might get. Right, we're going to carry on. I think I'm going to go spend some time in the eastern side of Djuma this morning, since I haven't been back into that area for a while. And so while I do that, we're going to send you to andBeyond and Ngala, who seems to be off to a cracking start, and Eric has already found some spots.
Welcome back to andBeyond Ngala. And this leopard hasn't moved very much at all. In fact, he's gone even flatter than when we first saw him. You can just hear the arrow-marked babblers calling in the background, so the birds are starting to wake up. And hopefully this leopard's going to pick its head up. We're probably about 10, maybe less than 10 minutes away from the sunlight really getting to him. There's right next to him on the right there, you can see that tree is just beautifully lit at the moment. Some really stunning morning light coming through. So hopefully, I mean, once he starts feeling a little bit warmer, then he might start getting up and more active. And this is a classic example of leopards, you know, moving around. I mentioned that this guy is sometimes quite difficult to follow and track. When you were live with Nikki last night, you found him in the riverbed, and that was at around 6 o'clock in the evening. So that's pretty much 12 hours in between us seeing him and Nikki seeing him. And during that time, you would have expected leopards are nocturnal. They like to move around at night time. He would have been long gone. So we went and looked for tracks, and expecting, you know, to at least spend at least an hour or so at least trying to figure out where he disappeared to. And he turns up literally no more than 100 meters away from where we left him 12 hours ago. He's not full, he doesn't have a kill around the area that we can see. Just decided that he didn't really feel like moving around too much. I wonder if it's got anything to do with the animals around this area. I mean, we found him by listening to bushbucks alarm calling, and so he could have been listening and trying to get closer to bushbucks throughout the night, or maybe there was impalas that came through. I mean, nocturnal species like scrub hares, or even little genets, they all spark his interest. So maybe he spent the whole night moving in almost these little circles around this area. I'm just trying to figure out what part of his body is what, but I think the white top that you can see up at the top there is, I think the hip or the ankle. Ken, you're 5 years old, and you're asking about if we name the animals, and we do. We name them for basically convenience. We don't really name them to form a relationship with them, but we name them to make it easier for us to understand what is going on in the reserve. So if I find this leopard and I'm able to identify it and give it a name, or at least tell everyone who it is, then it will allow each of the rangers to be able to figure out what's going on in this area, and if they're wanting to go and look for a slightly different leopard, then they'll be able to. So a lot of the time that we name the animals on the territory that they're around, or the area that we find them in, or sometimes specific behavioral traits. And so this male leopard, we have named the Makoti male. And Makoti in Shangaan is vulture. And when this young male leopard was recently independent, so when he was about a year old or so, he had to try and figure out how to hunt. And the way that he would hunt is he would climb right up to the top of the tallest trees in the area, and he would literally pick vultures' chicks from the nest. And he got really, really good at it until eventually, one afternoon, a few rangers actually saw him climbing right up to the top of a tree, and he jumped on top of a nest and he managed to kill a fully grown vulture. And I mean, it's a behavior that none of us had really kind of understood before, and so that's why he got the name a Haughty male. His mother was the black dam female, and she died, I think, pretty much a year and 2 months ago now. And the reason why we called it black dam is because there's a drainage line in this area called the Black Dam Drainage Line, and that's where we used to see her a lot. In fact, we know not more than 70, 80 meters away from that, and that's where the Black Dam female gave birth to him and his brother. Almost 2 years, 3-4 months ago now. So he's moving in the area where his mother used to. I'm sure it's places that he recognizes and it's familiar to him, so it makes it easier for him to move around. So, James, you're asking if you can tell the difference between male and female cats. It's a little bit tricky, especially if it's lying down in the long grass like that. But typically what happens, James, is males are much, much bigger than females. A male leopard will weigh 80 or 90 kilograms, so 160, 190 pounds. A female leopard will weigh sometimes half of that, so 80 to 100 pounds. So that's one of the first very big differences that we can notice. Another difference with an adult male leopard is they grow this thing called a dewlap. And James, if you've seen male lions before, that really big mane, the dewlap is a flap of skin from the chin to the chest, and it serves the same purpose. So it's a way of male leopards being able to size each other up, and it also protects their throat and their neck from when male leopards decide to fight with one another. When they're cubs and when they're very young, it's sometimes a little bit more tricky. But even if it's a male and a female within the same litter, within the first 2, 3, 4 months, you'll start to notice a slight size difference from then. And then from there it gets very, very easy. If you're unsure and you've got a view of the back legs, it's always good to look under the tail. That will be a sure answer for you. So this young male leopard is quite tricky because he doesn't have the dewlap. Okay, so whilst we wait, I mean, you can see, I'm sure you can just see a few rays of sunshine around this male leopard. So we're going to wait and at least see if he decides to move around in the morning sun. So we'll probably be here at least for another 30, 40 minutes or so. In the meantime, we're going to send you across to Lauren, who's in Djuma.
I'm enjoying a few rays of sunshine. Haven't seen a single track, everyone, other than hyena. Hyenas can throw you. You think, oh, track, and then, hyena. Now, I love hyenas. The reason I'm disappointed is because you can't track them. We've got 2 males here, which is very interesting, everyone. We've got 2 male Impalas, and this is a rutting season. This is where the males don't really like each other very much, to be honest. They're not friends. They're competitors. So it's quite unusual to see 2 of them. Oh, are you going to... Oh. Are you fighting or friends? Are you friends? The one closest to us is older. His horns are slightly bigger, and he actually looks bigger in general, more body mass. Oh, they look quite relaxed with one another. There's no ladies inside, maybe that's why. Oh, toilet time. Yes, it is, definitely. Thank you, Mr. Impala. So Impalas are normally quite relaxed with one another, and you will find big mixed herds of males and females and youngsters. But during this particular season, the males are not normally friends. If you see them together like this, it means that none of them are particularly territorial at the moment. Once they become territorial, I don't think this pair are very sure of each other. Once they become territorial, they will fight. And will really, really fight. the territories don't last, they dissolve. They're temporary territories. Oh, there's an impala's tongue. Someone was asking me yesterday about the colour of an impala's tongue. There you go. Molly, you're 14 years old, and yes, it's impala. Most predators, an impala is a perfect size. Impalas are said to be medium-sized antelopes. So for a leopard, at least, it really depends on what prey you're talking about. But for a leopard, it's perfect. It's a perfect size for females and male leopards to take down, both rams and ewes. For lions, they would have no problem taking down an impala. I actually watched it happen in front of my eyes not so long ago. Well, actually, it was in December. That is quite a long time ago. And it's over quickly. So there's no problem for them to hunt impala, but it doesn't last long for a pride of lions. It's a small animal for lions. They need to go for bigger prey. Lion pride generally show preference for buffalo. But of course, zebra, giraffe, male kudus will also make a good snack. So it really depends what predator you're talking about. But for wild dogs and leopards, impala are said to be the most preferred, well, snack. Especially during rutting season, when they become very, very discombobulated and they're focusing on all the wrong things, and they're very, very easy targets for the predators. And the predators know this. The predators will know when the males are distracted and make easy prey. They're having a little morning groom. They're probably standing in the sunlight or enjoying the little rays of sunshine that are peeking through, get some vitamin D, get some warmth, and go about their day, being boisterous and causing trouble. Now, as much as I love these impala, I do believe there could be a predator somewhere, and I've not came across a single track, which breaks my heart a little bit, but I just want to check the west thoroughly before I then go back down south, if that makes any sense. Have a good day, impalas. So when I was talking earlier about reading your environment, reading your situation, impalas are a great one. Always pay attention to them. Okay, maybe not so much in the rutting season, but impalas will always alarm call. Tristan was talking about birds alarm calling. They will always vocalize when they see a predator, or they smell a predator, or they hear a predator. You should always, always pay attention to the impalas. And this is what's part of being hyper aware, hypersensitive to everything that's going on around you. And kids, it's a great skill to practice when you're young. I definitely didn't practice it when I was young, but you really should. Try to learn to be hypersensitive to everything that's going on. Listen, smell, look, touch. Maybe don't taste everything. Don't want to taste everything that's on the ground here, but it's a really good skill to practice. So as I check the west one last time, we are going to send you back across to Tristan, see what he's up to now.
Well, sorry guys, I didn't get that. Unfortunately, I was busy tracking and I think I've forgotten to plug in my earpiece, which is very naughty of me. But we're just busy driving at the moment, trying to see if we can find any sign of some hyenas that we heard cackling away. It sounded like they were interacting and kind of making a bit of a noise. So I'm just trying to see if we can find them. We also had very, very fresh female leopard tracks in the same area, and often when you hear a hyena giggle like that, which is what we heard, it can be that they've kind of maybe stolen a kill or they're interacting in some way. It's very, very possible that that is the case. So we're going to try and see if we can find where that noise is coming from. It's somewhere in this area, so I thought I'd just stop at this waterhole and have a little look around and check if there's anything, but it doesn't seem like there is. The hyena den is not far away, but the sound, David and I both agreed, didn't come from the hyena den. It sounded like it was much closer to quarantine than the den itself. But I mean, on cold mornings, sometimes sound can travel a little bit further than you at first anticipate. So sometimes you end up kind of misjudging things a little bit. But it's good just to kind of go slowly and check. There's lots and lots and lots of tracks for hyenas all over here. As well as, like I say, that fresh female leopard track. And it is a fresh track. It's on top of everything from last night. So I suspect it was this morning. Maybe that's what our guinea fowls were alarm calling at, because it was just on the edge of quarantine. And normally that behavior is that of Kalamba. She likes to walk on the edges of these open clearings, particularly early morning, late afternoon. So maybe she's around here somewhere. Sydney all the way to America. Tracks, when tracking, are hugely important, or a big help. Sometimes they can be a pain because they go in 500 directions, and then it's this kind of case of decoding it. But yeah, fresh tracks and the signs of an animal being in an area certainly help. It means that you typically go a little bit slower, you listen more, you're very aware of what's going on all around you. And you know that there's an animal that's traveling in the area in that direction. So when you hear something like a grey go-away bird or a squirrel alarm call, which, you know, normally you'd be like, oh, it could be anything. But when you hear it, when you're tracking something, you know that there's a very real chance that that animal could be there. And so it's important to see tracks to know that in the area that you're working, that there potentially is something that you're looking for. So very, very important is the answer to that. I'm just trying to check all the trees as well, because if it was a leopard that had something and the hyena stole it, and that's why they were giggling, that little laugh that they have, I call it a giggle, but it's, I suppose, just a call that they have. Maybe there's a leopard that's popped up into a tree, maybe they stole a kill. You know, all of these scenarios are perfectly possible when it... Sorry, I thought I just heard a Franklin. Tawny eagle calling as well. No Franklins. Sometimes you got to just stop and listen a little bit. Over the noise of the engine, it's pretty tricky to hear everything, and sometimes some things sound like there's a noise being made, but when you turn off, it's not. It might just be the car or something like that you pick up. All right, I'm going to carry on here and see what I can find. I'm pretty sure something is afoot in this area. And so while I do that, let's send you back up to Eric, who doesn't have to worry about finding his leopard for the morning.
We are still sitting here, and this leopard is showing a lot more promise. Just look what it's doing. So now it's cleaning itself, it's making sure that a lot of the dew might be off of its coat. And we've seen a lot of yawns. We've seen about 3 or 4 yawns in a row, and all of those signs are pointing to a leopard getting up and moving, which is really exciting. So you can see even now, I mean, his head's moving around a lot more. He's looking around, maybe trying to figure out if he can hear or smell something that he might be able to go and hunt, or might be deciding to choose a direction. What I'm excited about is the sun is getting right to the point where it's going to hit him. I mean, it's right at the grass below it. So within the next 2 or 3 minutes, if he stays in that same spot, he's going to light up so beautifully. Let's see what happens. I mean, it sometimes does take them quite a while to get up and decide to move. But he has been doing this for several minutes now, so he might carry on for a couple of minutes, and then hopefully we see that final yawn. He'll get up and stretch, and then he'll decide to choose a direction. Both Owen and I have noticed it's been interesting. We started off incredibly chilly, but it's warming up quite a lot, and we're getting these gushes of hot air, which is quite unusual. See, now he's scratching. There we go. Look at that. He steps up into the light. Let's see. He gives us a yawn, maybe a stretch. Oh, that lighting is just absolutely beautiful. Look at his nose, that pink is really, really bright. There we go, there's the stretch. Jesse, you've actually asked quite an interesting question, and you're only 9 years old. Sorry, this leopard is literally walking straight past our vehicle. So let's see if we can see him on the other side. I'll answer your question in a moment. Here he is. Okay. I was just making sure that he wasn't deciding to come under our vehicle to use it as a shade or anything, but he seems to have lost interest in us. But so Jesse, the major similarities, you're looking at one. This leopard is almost exactly the same as a jaguar that you find in South America. And jaguar, I think, is the biggest cat in South America that you can find. And like I say, it's almost exactly the same as a leopard. Difference being is that a jaguar is slightly bigger than a leopard. So a jaguar might be a little bit closer towards a lion size. And they've got a shorter tail. They've got a very, very big, powerful jaw and neck. And in the rosettes, so the rosettes are those black spots that are concentrated in one area. And usually a jaguar will have a little polka dot. So one spot in the middle of the spot, and then 3 or 4 rosettes around it. Other big cats that you find in South America are the puma or the cougar, mountain lion. It's all the same cat. And they are probably pretty similar size to this male leopard. See, he's not moving quickly, so he's just walked up, and there's a slight open clearing where he's probably listening and smelling and looking for things to potentially hunt. And there's some really nice cover for him, and then there's a big open clearing about maybe 70, 80 meters away from us. See, it looks like he's listening and trying to focus on something. We're just not sure what it is yet. Ethan, Kylie and Caleb, you're asking about the different wild cats that we find in the park. And within andBeyond and Ngala, the 3 big ones that you might be familiar with, they're quite easy and most people know them, are the leopard that we're looking at, the lion, and the cheetah. So we get all 3 of them passing through. Lions and leopards tend to be quite a lot more regularly sighted than cheetahs, just because they are a little bit more rare. And then we see caracal, which is almost like a lynx, and then a serval, which is similar to a cheetah in a way, but just much smaller, and it's got these very long straggly legs. And then wildcat. So that's 6 that I've counted. I think that's pretty much all of the cats that we find. There are a few species that look similar to a cat. There's something called a genet, which has got a similar spot pattern to a leopard. But of the true cats, it's basically just the 6 of them. And of the 6, I've been lucky enough to see all 6 of them. I've seen serval a few times, and I've only ever seen one caracal, but it was here at Ngala. If he decides to move again, I will try and reposition. There is an armrest that is slightly in the way at the moment. So that's that little object that you do see every now and again. Just look, big stretch. Just look at how that body moves. It's so fluid, from his shoulders to his back, all the way down to his tail. So, Amelia, you asking about how we can tell when we're tracking if it's a male or a female. And it goes into one of the questions that we discussed a little bit earlier on with the size. Males tend to have much bigger tracks than females, and they tend to, it does look like he's interested in creeping up to something. It could be just something like one of those Franklins or Spurfowls that we saw. We haven't seen anything or heard anything yet, so he's probably just investigating these small little sounds that he's making. But so it's basically just the track, and the front foot is very, very round on a male leopard and tends to be a little bit more egg-shaped on a female leopard. With this male in particular, we don't know if it's an old injury or if it's something that he has developed as he's growing old, but on his front left foot, when he walks, he steps and he twists slightly outwards. And so that is something that we've noticed in the last couple of weeks since we've been tracking him. And it's a pretty dead giveaway to give you an individual like that. But you have to see it in nice, clear sand. You can't really see it in all of his tracks. Okay, so he's just ducked behind this termite mound. We are going to try and loop around a little bit and see if we can follow him. Okay, so Owen's going to help me spot. I mean, he wasn't moving quickly, so hopefully we'll be able to find him again. We're literally just going to loop around. He's walking straight in the direction. Okay, yeah, I can see him. He's walking straight in the direction of those clearings, but he's also taking his time just to try and get as much information as he possibly can out of anything that's up ahead. Okay, Achilea, yeah, majestic is the exact word that I would use to describe him. And leopards, for me, are one of the most strikingly majestic animals that we see here. And I think it's just a combination of a few things. I mean, it's one of those animals that are very difficult to find. So when we see them, it's very rewarding. And then that color pattern is really, really beautiful. The golds, the blacks, the whites, they all just seem to work perfectly. All right, so this leopard is coming out into the gap. Look how slowly he's walking. I'm sure he's something close by, but we just can't see it. Just watch how intently he'll place his foot. He doesn't want to make noise. See, watch that. Slowly he's hovering just above the ground and places it gently, gently. Sure. And there's just that one patch of light on his face that's catching the eye when he moves every now and again. Okay. Well, whatever it is, it doesn't seem to be too serious. So if things get more exciting, I'm sure we'll come back here. But in the meantime, we'll see what Lauren is up to. I think she's following some tracks. Okay. Yeah. Big stretch. Okay. Slowly moving forward. Let's see. I think this is more just investigating a sound or a noise, because it doesn't seem like he's got that body position. You know, if he had seen something that he was extremely interested in, he wouldn't want to give his position away, which means he'll just rely on his camouflage and he'll dip straight down into the grass. And then he would edge forward very, very slowly. He could even just wait in a spot and see if the animal that he was trying to hunt would come towards him. And so, like I say, I think it's just, I mean, it also just shows you how attuned the sense of hearing is, because we haven't heard anything out of the ordinary up ahead of us. There's no rustling, there's nothing. but he's just got such exceptionally good hearing that he would be able to figure out if it's something small that's moving through here. If it's something small, it could be something that he'll be able to hunt. And he's a young male. Oh, I love how he just blends into his surroundings. It just takes one bush and that leopard has disappeared. I'm just going to edge forward again. Yeah, apparently some of you are saying that it looks like he's trying to get some breakfast. I would agree. And I wonder what's on the menu today. I'm sure he'll take whatever opportunity comes. But he's still young. In theory, he could still have been with his mother if his mother wasn't killed by hyenas. And so he just has to try and figure out how to hunt and survive himself. And one of the ways that he's become so successful is by hunting a lot of these smaller things. Like we've mentioned, he hunted vultures, so he'll start hunting mongoose or small little genets, maybe even birds if he can pounce onto them. And I think one of the things that what's he got to there? Oh, he's just moving around a little bit more. One of the things, okay, yeah, so he's just got such a versatile diet, and that's one of the things that allow them to occur in so many different areas. And so whatever he was interested in and that he was stalking up to seems to have disappeared, or he's lost interest at least. The good news is that he's up and he's moving around, and we're going to follow him. So for now, I think we will send you to Lauren this time and see what tracks she has this morning.
I picked up on very, very fresh leopard tracks. So they cut off into this block. So instead of bashing through, we're going to try and go round. If there's a moving animal, then we must catch it moving, if that makes sense. If the animal's mobile, be mobile. You can see all the lion tracks from yesterday, but these were very, very fresh. Coming in from the west, which is interesting, there was a female and a male. So I'm a bit confused. I know that Tristan got confused with the tracks yesterday because they just seem to be everywhere, of both sexes. I wish we could drag the whole area every night. I wish we had a big tractor, we'll drag it, and then in the morning you have a clean slate. We would never do that. But wouldn't that be lovely? You would know exactly who had walked where. And then again at night time, clean slate. Imagine. I'm driving slowly so that I can hear as well. These cars can be very, very noisy. If someone's on territorial patrol, then they're going to be sawing. They're going to be noisy. Where did you go, dear leopard? Lisa, you're asking, do leopards groom one another? Absolutely not, Lisa. Leopards are completely solitary. You won't find groups of leopards. You'll always find a leopard on its own. Completely solitary. They don't interact. They have a very different social structure from lions. Now, you will obviously find a mating pair together, a male and female that are mating, of course, because they have to be together, but otherwise you really won't find groups. You will find a mother with her offspring. Naturally, a mother has to look after her cubs, but once they are pushed to independence, for a female leopard that's about 18 months, and for a male that's about 2 years. Females reach independence before males do, and other than that, leopards will always be alone. We've had some interesting interactions here with Tlalamba and Tingana, who are father and daughter. But other than that, really, they avoid one another. Completely solitary, and therefore they will not groom. I'm making a decision. In case you can't hear the cogs in my brain turning. They are turning, I promise. I'm going to go back down the road that I came. Sometimes it's worth just doubling back. It's all about making decisions out here. Sometimes at the end of a drive, we all come back to camp and we'll say, do you know what? I feel like I made all the wrong decisions today. Even BK can vouch. We put pressure on ourselves and we'll say, oh, I just wish I hadn't gone that way and I'd gone that way. I followed those tracks, but I should have followed the other tracks. It's just all about decisions. You've got to make the decisions on the spot. It's dynamic. It's happening as you see it. Sometimes we don't always make the right decisions. But nobody in life always makes the right decisions, right? This is very much Hukamuri's block. I found him here. 90% of the time that I've found Hook has been here. So I'm wondering if he's been moving, and I don't know who the female is. I can only imagine. And it would maybe Shudulu. But that's a guess. That's a huge guess. Okay, I'm gonna keep bumbling, and my plan is to head to the hyena den. I just want to make sure there's no leopard here. And as I do that, I think Tristan is also bumbling around.
We are indeed. We're still just checking this area around where we heard those hyenas. I mean, I can hear some from the den, but the one we heard giggling, was laughing, whatever you want to call it, was not in the same area. Well, not according to David and I. We might be completely wrong, but it was somewhere to kind of our left. So we're just checking, and what I'm looking for is that if potentially it was a situation where they stole a carcass from a leopard, what I would imagine is that they would drag it towards the den. So I'm just trying to see if there's any drag marks or anything like that, or any sign or indication that that might be the case. It's a serious kind of, I don't know what the word would be, gamble. It's probably that this is actually the case, but worth just checking. Sometimes things are not just a coincidence, but sometimes they are. Anyway, unfortunately that's been the end of our kids safari for the morning, so it's time for all of the adults to ask as many questions as they would like to. Remember, hashtag WildEarth or at FC on the YouTube chat. Hopefully we're going to have some success fairly shortly with some sort of spots on our side, whether that be hyena or leopard. David is eagerly looking to our left-hand side to try and see if there's any sign there. We can't find any further tracks for that female. It's quite weird. She goes into, just from where the turnoff kind of goes towards Tumbeta, there's like a little game path that cuts off there, and she went onto the game path. Now normally a leopard that takes that game path will pop out at two marulas that are sitting next to the road on the other side, and they scent mark there a lot of the time, and they can pop out at those marulas and then they cross the road and head off towards the western side of quarantine. That's the general route of the leopards that go that direction, but she doesn't come out anywhere, well, not that I can see. There is a lot of hyena tracks all over that road, so maybe they've squashed it, but either that or she's still inside that block somewhere, which is exactly where we heard those things. And it's why I kind of came to that conclusion that maybe, just maybe, she has killed somewhere, and that maybe hyenas are trying to rob her of it. Could be completely wrong and just missed the tracks and she's crossed out, but if she hasn't crossed out, it's certainly a viable thought, that's for sure. So just checking the area carefully, stopping and listening from time to time, just to make sure that we check what's going on. Now, yesterday, lots of the older viewers were asking me about my jacket, and the one that has all of the tape on it. And I yesterday wasn't wearing it because I actually didn't know where it was. It was in my bag somewhere, and I eventually found it. But I have it back on today with my torn cap, which is the lucky cap and the lucky jacket. Has been through a lot of rough days, and so it has gaffer tape all over it and is looking a bit worse for wear. But David and I spent many hours procuring the holes on this jacket through various days of following hold on, David, following leopards around. And so particularly Hosanna, my jacket took an absolute pounding when we had Hosanna, which was a male leopard that we used to see a lot in the last few years. So it's back on, the hat is back on. We're now ready to actually start finding our spotted cats. But it's nice that there's lots of ellies around. Yesterday afternoon was just ellies central. They were all over the place. David, did you see a decent sized herd, or was it just the two of them? Just the two, which is quite odd. Generally, you don't see small groupings like this, just a female with a young one, but they probably spread out through this area. It's quite dense, quite thick. There's actually a little drainage line that drops off here, and so it's very possible that the rest, I can actually hear more of them, that they're milling about inside the drainage line. There's a bit of a breeze blowing, and so often when there's a breeze blowing, the ellies like to get into thicker bush in order to hide away. Oh, there's another one right here, David. You see it? Behind the wattle. I was sitting here thinking I can hear an elephant somewhere here, and it's hiding itself very conveniently behind a bush. There you can see its tusk and its trunk. Now, interestingly enough, there was a lot of ellie tracks all over the areas that we've been driving now, and the hyenas and leopards were on top. Well, leopard was on top of that. So whether those tracks are from this particular herd, I'm not sure. I'll have to go back and check, but if it is, it means that those tracks are very fresh, which means that we need to concentrate a little bit more in that section. But these ellies must be it's missing its tip of its tail. Look, David, see it sticking out behind the bush there. I was about to say that these ellies must be super happy. I don't know if you guys can see it. Just up to the top left of the frame, it looks like a little branch sticking out of the leaves. You can see it's missing that tip. There's no black hairs coming off of it. Now, what causes that is obviously much debate, because we don't really know the history of this particular elephant. We haven't spent every single day with it. But in all likelihood, that tail was maybe lost in its youth, when it was much younger. Often what you find when you see animals missing tails, particularly ellies, is that it happens when they're babies, and that they've had some sort of incident with hyenas or lions trying to grab them, and then sometimes they take the tip of the tails off, and you see that. But it will be highly irritating for that elephant, because those tails are very effective fly swatters and keep flies away from the back end of their bodies, and so this poor guy, I'm afraid, is not going to be able to do it. It looks like a young bull. That's why I'm saying this poor guy. But I was going to say before I saw the tail was that the ellies at the moment must be so happy after 4 or 5 years of really dry, difficult conditions, which meant that ellies had to really get creative with their food that they had to find. Now they've got a plethora of food, and late into the season as well, because the rains came so late. We're sitting in May and there's still green grass, which doesn't normally happen. There's lots of vegetation still. You see behind us there's a African harrier hawk. What is it doing? Is it hunting in these dead trees? They often do hunt in dead trees. They look for all kinds of things like scorpions and lizards and squirrels and birds. What are you after? You see how it's kind of checking out, and they often check in the areas. Yes, I can hear you. They often check in the areas where there's loose bark, because that's where they can find things like scorpions and lizards hiding out. So they kind of hop from tree to tree, and you can see those long legs that they will use to try and kind of find holes in the tree, and then they stick them in and grab birds and all kinds of things out of it as well. So I'm pretty sure this guy is having a little hunt and is just trying to look around. And you'll find they go from tree to tree as they do it. It's also incredibly vocal, which is interesting. I wonder if maybe there's not another one somewhere around. They typically don't call all that much, but Indigo Girl, yes, they are. They are very, very cool hunters, these guys. They're super intriguing to watch. I love seeing them kind of bouncing around in these trees and figuring out ways to get at little creatures that are obviously hiding. They're incredibly specialized when it comes to this. You can see how it's looking for any sort of crack in the bark, and then it will use its beak, or it will actually use the talons to break that bark away to be able to get to something that it's looking for. And like I say, they eat a lot of different things, from grubs and insects to scorpions. Like I say, they'll take squirrels or anything really that they can find in amongst these trees. Is fair game for them. Beautiful, beautiful bird. James Richard, I know you'll enjoy this. You love these African harrier hawks. The best is when they get onto the side of a tree and they cling on with their talons, and then they have their wings out, and their wings kind of balance them, and they almost look as though they're hanging off a cliff. It's really, really cool to see when they do that. I wonder what it's busy feeding on. Anyway, off it goes. Alright, well, while it flies away and goes and tries and finds another dead tree to go and forage on, we're going to send you back to Eric, who is still with the leopard, and I wonder if the leopard's up and moving about.
So welcome back. We were following this leopard for quite some time, and it was trying to, well, not really trying to give us a slip, but it was doing just what we thought, and it was moving in all sorts of directions. It was moving, started going this way, then it came back, then it did a big circle, and then eventually it went down into a drainage line where we couldn't get the vehicle through. So it was heading straight towards the big riverbed that we started off in this morning, and we're not too far away from the road. So we're just going to try and speedily get past there and see if we can maybe see him in the riverbed and see what he might be up to. All good there, Owen? Well, hoping I've got my bearings right and we find the road quickly. Let's just see. There's at least a very nice big game trail we can follow. So interesting to see him move around this morning. I mean, he was moving so slowly at a point, and he was just literally tiptoeing through the area, and then all of a sudden he decided this area isn't providing anything, and then he just put his head down and he started walking on a very prominent game trail, which tells us that he wanted to get from one spot to another. So we luckily found ourselves a road, and now the small little riverbed, we'll quickly have a quick pan down it to see if we can maybe see him walking. Otherwise, we'll try and get to the major river where this one flows into. And this is the drainage line that I mentioned that this male leopard was born in about 2 years ago. So, see, it's around the bend here, but this is exactly the spot. It's called the Black Dam drainage line. But we'll carry on going and see if we can maybe... We're quite elevated here, and if we can see from a distance him crossing the river, that will be really cool. Debbie, yes, I have seen him since he was a cub. I came onto Ngala in July of 2018, and at that stage he was probably about 3 or 4 months old. So I've seen him and followed him almost on a daily basis since then. So it's been quite fascinating to watch him grow up, get to the point where he was with his mother, found his mother who had been killed by hyenas, and really follow him and try and see him working out life by himself. So it's been a very, very interesting thing to be able to follow him and see him go through all of these challenges and almost embrace it in a way. Okay, so here is our elevated point of the river. It's one of my favorite views of the Haughty River is from here. And we've got a little gap where we hopefully are going to see him. Otherwise I'm just going to go straight into the river. Maybe I'll do that. It's a bit too thick. Alright. See, I mean, this riverbed is very, very open, and you wouldn't expect a leopard to want to walk through such an open area like this. So I would imagine that if he was trying to cross the river, he'll be crossing quite quickly. Otherwise, he could be walking along the banks. Okay, so whilst we're trying to figure out where he's gone, if he's walked along the bank or if he's crossed the river, what we'll do is send you across to Tristan, who's with some elephants at the moment.
I do. David, what kind of shot is that? What am I supposed to do with that? Yes, he's about to go to the toilet, David. It's not ideal. But yes, that is the backside of an elephant, everybody, and a stumpy tail. Luckily, we didn't get the poop balls dropping because they were just prior to that. They all kind of landed on the ground. But hello, boy. Isn't it cool hearing the sound of the branches against their skin? I always love when you sit with ellies, particularly in these kind of thicker areas, and then you hear them walking through the bush and you kind of get that like scraping sound. And it's just so cool to be in amongst them. I said it yesterday, I mean, I spent quite a lot of time with ellies yesterday afternoon, but it is really the most amazing thing to sit with an elephant. Oh, I'm being attacked, David. Yes. Do you want to see by what, David? Look, there's a grasshopper. It is attacking me. So evidently it was disturbed by us driving through the grass, and it has then jumped onto my leg. Now generally when you feel a thud against your leg and something that feels quite cold, you should investigate that, because out here there's all kinds of crazy things that can be on you. But I think he's quite happy in the sun, don't you think, David? Very cool. Yes, normally they hop away when you try and kind of grab them, but this particular fella I think is a little bit cold. But really, really cool to have a look at them up close, because generally these guys don't sit still for very, very long. But you can see all kinds of interesting sort of developments that they've got. Obviously antennae on the front, which are sensory, so unlike the mammals, mammals don't have that, but these antennae are going to be incredibly sensory. And then you've got these big eyes, which are sensory, so unlike the mammals, mammals don't have that, but these antennae are going to be incredibly sensory. And then you've got these big eyes that will pick up any movement, and if I move my finger on my other hand, you'll see that it will react to it. Do you see how its head is moving to the movement of my finger? And so those eyes, even though they are big, they're not as developed as what ours are, where they can see a lot of definition and can see a long way. They just pick up any sort of movement that are anywhere near them, and that allows them to stay safe and protect them from obviously being hunted, because things like this will get hunted a lot. This particular individual will not be toxic. You can see that it's got no bright coloration at all, so this is an indication that this is a tasty little locust, is probably a better word for it. Anna-Marie, did you say David? It was a great shot. David?
It's all you, Tristan.
It's all me? Yeah. No, it's all you. I'm just trying to stay still, but otherwise I'm going to get in trouble. The cameraman shouts at us if we don't hold still. But nice with a little bit of catch light on the eye, isn't it, David? very nice. And then you can also see the little armor plating that they kind of have along their body, which is really cool. And then those spikes on their legs, which is all going to be basically to defend this creature and stop it from being eaten. And then obviously the wings that go back that are shining in the sun. Nice. But I'm going to put it back in the grass so I can catch up with our Ellie that has left us in the dust. Come on, buddy. You can't be on the vehicle. You've got to go be in the wild, on the grass. Let's go. There we go. And it flew away, David. You see it landed. Yes, I'll show you. Hold on, because we're going to reverse now. And it landed on a branch. Or a piece of grass, is it? You see here, there's like this grey sticky part. And then just to the right, there's like a dry piece that comes out. Yes, on that dry piece. I'll show you on the camera. Just go in to your right a little bit, straight. Now just dead center, basically. Up a little bit. So on there somewhere. Down a little bit. There it is. You see it in the middle? You can see the camouflage is unbelievable. But in the middle of the screen, over there, on that branch, is our little grasshopper. Can you see it now, David? Amazing, eh? Amazing camouflage that these guys have got once they're in the grass. All right, well, now that we've been messing around and trying to find things on grasses, it sounds like Lauren has found spots of her own, but a different kind to the ones that Eric has.
I had lots of spots when I first came here, everyone. There was 5 hyenas. 5. Sadly, we now only have 2. We have this little individual who's hiding. No, not hiding, but keeping distance. And of course, we have a ribbon sleeping, as a good mama does, at the entrance to her den right over here. The cubs are not out. But the other 3 hyenas have disappeared, I'm afraid, and Tristan did report that there was lots of vocalizations. Something went down here earlier. Something went down. I'm wondering, there's hyena tracks all over the reserve. All over the reserve, very, very fresh. So I maybe think there was some food item and a feeding frenzy took place here. It would have been very good to witness that. But 3 hyenas have disappeared, and I saw that one was Swazi. But unfortunately, I didn't get an ID on the other ones. So at least we know Swazi's around. And of course, Ribbon is doing a perfect job of being Ribbon. And getting cozy. She probably won't let her cubs out, I imagine, until it gets a little bit warmer. We're only just starting to feel the warmth from the sun now. It's probably much warmer for those cubbies inside the den than it would be outside the den. Erica, hyenas don't actually have a hunchback. They have 2 things. They have a very long, muscular neck, almost out of proportion of the rest of their body. And this is because they've evolved to be more powerful at the front of their body. This is because they drag carcasses. They're scavengers. So they drag. And they need the power to be at the front of the body, not the back of the body. And that's why the hind legs are actually much weaker than the forelegs. They've got the long necks in order to get into kill sites, grab with their mouth. They've got one of the most powerful bites in the animal kingdom, or at least within the mammals. And then they can pull whatever they have scavenged or hunt it. They also hunt by coursing. So they'll put their mouth in while chasing an animal and try to take it down that way. That's why they've got big, powerful necks. But if you look at the back of Ribbon's head, we've got a perfect example. Thank you, Ribbon. You see all those tufts of tawny hair sticking up. Now, this makes them look like they have a hunchback, but they actually haven't. What it's there for is to make them look bigger and scarier. So they've got long hair that stands up all the way from the sort of crown of their head down the back of their neck, and it's to give them a larger appearance, an optical illusion, if you like. You can see this one perfectly. I think BK is going to try and show you what I'm talking about. So those things combined together, perfectly. You can just see that tuft of hair running right down to the shoulder blades. We can just go up a little bit, BK. There we go. It's not the most perfect views, but it shows you what I'm saying. So those two factors together actually make them look like they've got a hunchback. But great question, Erica. Now I'm going to stay here for a little while, hoping we see the cubbies. And as I sit and bask in the sun, we're going to send you back across to Tristan and his elephants.
Well, we are still with the Ellies, and hopefully the little ones do come out, Lauren. But I'm super happy that we found a herd that I haven't seen in a very long time, even prior to kind of this break that I've had now. There's a particular individual in this herd that's got a very interesting set of tusks, which I'll show you shortly. I'm just going to reposition a little bit. They seem to be quite on edge, though. A lot of them are posturing with their heads up, as though they are smelling something on the wind. And I don't know if it's because there's a couple young males that are in amongst them, or if there's a predator that is around, or maybe just our scent is blowing onto them. I'm not sure. But here she is here on our right-hand side. Hello, girl. It's been a long time since I've seen you. But her tusk grows underneath her trunk. I think the last time I saw her must have been maybe over a year ago. So she's obviously been roaming around the wilds of the greater Kruger, and has been spending time all over the place. But she's a very, very unique character. Now, that particular tusk, you would think, might be uncomfortable, but it's not going to do anything to her. It's certainly not going to affect her body condition or her ability to feed. As you can see, her trunk just kind of wraps around it on the underside, and then is able to still go and kind of get the food into her mouth. Oh, that's nice with all the dust. So she's still capable of feeding perfectly well. The only problem is that that tusk sometimes will continue to grow, because it's not going to be worn nearly as well as the tusk on the right-hand side. So the left tusk will continue to grow, and the angle of it might start to cause problems, particularly if it starts to get much longer. Eventually it could get to the point where it kind of inhibits her ability to push her trunk back towards her mouth. But for now, it's all okay. And maybe if that is the case, she'll start to try and wear it through creative measures. Ultimately, Ellies are pretty smart creatures, and so she'll figure it out, I'm pretty sure. But you can see her overall body condition is absolutely perfect. I believe a lot of you are excited to see her. I am as well. Like I said, it's been a while since I've seen her. Hello, girl. Pretty. She's a beautiful, beautiful female as well. Now you can see she's become so used to that tusk. Do you see how she just used that? That was cool. So it's almost like a little pair of chopsticks, that little area between her trunk and the tusk. She just puts the grass there, can kind of sniff us, and then carry on. Super, super cool to see. That's amazing. I enjoyed that. Tavi? Wasn't that cool? Yes, I thought so. Just going to go forward a little bit. Laurel loves Elvis. Why do I call elephants Ellies? Just because elephant is a long word to say, and I like the way Ellies sounds. So, yeah, it's just an abbreviation, really. I suppose it's like people that have, certain names that are shortened. It's not so much, it doesn't really happen as much as it used to in the past, but, with things like Bob and those kind of things, it's the same with elephant, Ellie, I don't know, easier to say. Sometimes I say elephants, though, I think. You see she's weighing in on the conversation now. I don't know if you heard that low grumble that they made. There's a small little baby in amongst there, so I'm sure that they're just chatting amongst themselves and having a little talk. Now, the one with the tusk that's going in underneath her trunk almost looks as though she's pregnant, David. You see that? She's quite wide, isn't she? She's distended a little bit from the sort of mid-drift. A lot of Ellies that will be pregnant. Of course, they don't have a defined breeding season, so it's bound to happen. What's going on this side here? There's naughty kids pushing each other around by the looks of things. Maybe that's why everyone's a little bit on edge, is that there's teenagers playing and being naughty. You see the two at the back are the ones that have been pushing each other around. When we first kind of got here, to this little open clearing, they were pushing each other into the thickets, and then they've just come out again now. But let's see. There we go, you see? Typical teenagers. Too much energy, and now it's time to mess around and play. And so they test each other's strength, and you'll find that often with these guys, a lot of the time, the little ones are the ones that cause the trouble. Right, it sounds like Lauren's had a little bit of luck, and the little ones are out, so let's quickly send you across to her.
The cubbies are coming out, everyone. Now, we must tell Tristan they're desperate to meet Uncle Tristan. Londeka, you need to tell them. The little cubbies just told me they're desperate to meet Uncle Tristan. They really want to say hi to him. They love him already. Now, I know I said this yesterday, and I try not to repeat myself, but I'm really shocked at the difference in these cubs. I only noticed it when I was in FC and Trishala was on drive, and I just quickly looked up at the screen, and I thought, wow, these are not the same cubs that I've been with. They're already getting paler. Now, there's differences between the two, and we're going to just call them Cub 1 and Cub 2 for now. I like Rib and Rob, but I'll probably get in trouble for that. Just nicknames, just so that we can start to identify who's the dominant one, who's the submissive one. And in order to do that, we can't say that cub and that cub. We have to establish some sort of difference. So Cub 1 and Cub 2. Or Rib and Rob. Or Bow and Tie. Shall we go with Bow and Tie? So many of you have suggested Bow and Tie to me, so I think we'll go with it. But it's just nicknames. Don't get me in trouble. Hello? What's on your face? Is that an injury or a piece of vegetation? I'm not sure. Oh, vegetation. So when we get a look at them together, we'll run through it. And once we can sex them, which is not right now, I'm convinced there's a boy in here, but it's really too early to tell. Their penis stroke pseudopenis is still developing. But we'll slowly start to piece together the puzzle that are these two little guppies. Emma and Londeka have not met them, so they'll need to come out and say hello. Oh, you have to repeat that, Londeka. I didn't quite get it. Cheryl, you're saying we should call them Bill and Stash.
Bill and Stash.
I think I've got that wrong. Phil.
Bill and Stash.
And Stash. I think I'm still getting this wrong because I'm not getting it. Maybe Londeka can spell it and I might be slightly better at that. Bow and Stash. That makes a lot more sense. I'm thinking Bill. Why would we call one Bill? Sorry, Cheryl. My apologies. A bow makes a lot more sense. I agree with you, Cheryl, 100%. One nickname should be Bill. I like Tie. And you were saying Sash. Now I get it. Sorry. It's an accent thing. But yes, bow. I want to say one girl and one boy, but I am completely speculating and making this up here. I'm not going to lie to you. But yes, I think we should have just cutesy little nicknames, not to cause trouble, not to name them. We are not officially naming them. Oh, someone's incoming. Good morning. This is very much... Oh, another one. We've got 3. I can see 3. This is very much a communal den now. BK, let's see if we can just watch this interaction. Sorry, because the cuppies are out. What's going to happen? Interactions are very, very important. Oh! Look how excited the cubs are. I don't know if this is Intima.
No.
They're so excited to see another hyena. Oh, anal pasting, a little bit of pasting with your anus in the morning. Luca's over here as well. The one in front, you don't need to put him on yet, BK. The one in front is Luca. I can see that smiley face. Look how excited they are. Oh, they're like, oh, we've got visitors. Mummy's not really doing much. Wild Kate, you're saying they're just so excited, aren't they? They're so happy to see some. Oh. Oh. Now this is very sweet. Oh, we've got another one incoming. Hello. What's happened to your eye? This one's got a bad right eye. Let's just take a quick look, BK. Luca's in the background. Something's wrong with this hyena's eye. The penis had flaccid, which means submissive. You're walking past your matriarch. Got to be submissive. Got to show some respect. Wow, this is really a communal day this morning. Now, any of you hyena experts, I am definitely nowhere near as good as I used to be. Please, please assist me. Who was that one with the injured eye? So far, Swazi was originally here. We've got Ruben, obviously. We've got Luca. I think we have Ntima. Ntima's got a lot darker recently since I first knew. Yes, who are you? Are you hard? You're a big hyena, whoever you are. Of course, females are bigger. And sometimes you can gauge the sex purely looking by size. This is like a family outing. And it's just so fantastic seeing the changes in these cubs. I mean, they're already growing up. From when Davi and I first found them on the 27th of March, I'll never forget it. They did not look like this, everyone. They look so different. They're already changing. And of course, if you're enjoying spending time with little Bo and little Ty, and you do want to watch them grow up, you are welcome to head over to WildEarth.tv and support us. We need all of your support to keep going. And of course, we want to see these two little cubbies grow up into the little munchkins that they will be. And not only that, we have Tandy's cubs too. Come on out, little cubbies. I know it's cold. They're so pale in the face. Why are you growing up so quickly? I'm not okay with this. Auntie Lauren says slow down. Okay, now I'm not going anywhere. Stay here and enjoy all these interactions, but you guys are going to go across to Eric for an update.
Sounds like you've had a really interesting sighting at the hyena den. I'm very jealous. One of my favorite animal species, especially when there's so many of them together. And so what we'll be doing now is it's starting to warm up quite a lot. We had a very, very brief view of that male leopard now, and unfortunately he was just in a difficult position. He was walking up and down. We heard Franklin's alarm calling and going crazy, and so I think that might be what he was doing, and we just really didn't get a good enough view of him. So we decided to leave him. And we are now heading slightly further west towards the riverbed, and I am hoping that we are going to see if we can try and see the little lion cubs that have been around in the last couple of days. When we saw that leopard this morning, it was hunkered up, it was cold, it wasn't doing much, and then as soon as the light came onto it is when it started to move around. So I think that female lion might be doing the same with the cubs. So just keeping them hidden, and then hopefully she brings them out to warm up in the morning sunlight. So we should get there within the next 10 or 15 minutes or so. And in the meantime, it's just basically a nice little drive through the clearings. We get down into the riverbed, and then from the river we start making our way towards where she's been keeping them for the last couple of days. It's been so amazing to see her bringing them out more and more. And so she's gotten to that point now where she's comfortable that they're able to move around a little bit. They're not really threatened too much. And I'm hoping that she keeps them in that same spot for at least until this afternoon, so we can see them. Yeah, well, I don't want to get your hopes up too much. Oh, there's an elephant, but I think we'll probably, just so we can get to the den nice and early, we're going to leave that elephant and not really spend too much time with it. I'll come back at later. Yeah, so we are, like I said, we're 10-15 minutes away from where she has been keeping her cubs in the last couple of days. And so whilst we take our time to get into the area, we will cross Aaron, who's with the hyena.
The cubbies seem to have disappeared for now. I really hope they come back out again. It's Comet. Chris Rogue, thank you. I don't know why I always think hard. It's something to do with this spot pattern. I used to be incredible with the hyenas, and I'm not anymore. I'm quite happy to admit that, I'm afraid. But Chris Rogue, thank you. It's Comet with the bad eye, and that makes sense. This is the third time in a row. Here they come. Here comes trouble. 3 times in a row I have seen Ribbon chase Comet, and she just chased him now. Comet's a male. He's a big male, especially compared to Luca and Fika, and he's damaged his eye somehow. That's the first time I've seen his eye like that, and Ribbon doesn't seem to like him. She doesn't seem to like the boys get too close. The closest male I have seen getting to her is Saka, which is very interesting. Could Saka be the daddy? Who's your daddy? Who knows? We will probably never know, everyone. But Ribbon got up and she chased him, and that's why the cubbies ran back inside and we lost him. She really doesn't appear to have much respect for Comet, which is interesting. The males don't have a hierarchy like females, but the females seem to trust those males that have been with the clan for a long time. And Ribbon knows this clan inside out because she was at the bottom. She knows how it feels to be bullied. She knows how it feels to get no food. She knows how it feels to get attacked. Patrick, you're 6 years old. And yes, they get milk teeth, just like humans do. We have baby teeth, also known as milk teeth, and then we lose them, and then we get our adult teeth. Hyenas do too. And they're actually born with their canines fully erupted. So when you see a newborn hyena cub, they've already got sharp little teeth that can bite. So yes, they do. They lose their milk teeth, and then they gain their adult teeth. And as I mentioned earlier, hyenas do have one of the most powerful bites in the mammal world. It's more powerful per sort of force per unit than a lion's. And I'm still so surprised because normally they say after 4 weeks, hyenas move the cubs from the natal den to a communal den. There's been no movement here. And what I think has happened is because they're the only cubs in the clan at the minute. I suspected Heart might have cubs, but I don't know. I hope she does. But I suspect that Ribbon's still using this den because it's perfect. It's ideal in so many ways, and it's now transformed into the communal den. We're well past the 4-week mark with these little ones. Lindy, I agree, one of them, Cub 1, has really white eyebrows. It's quite comical. Cub 1, I think I'm going to go with Bo, has very, very white eyebrows, and that's actually how I notice them, or how I tell them apart at this moment. I'd like to show you them both. I just need them to sort of come out and, well, sit pretty and still for a few minutes. Something's telling me that's not going to happen. And some of you sent screenshots, so thank you so much for being so helpful in this process of trying to work out who the cubs are. Okay, we're going to stay here for now. The cubs are far too active. And as I enjoy my little nieces and nephews, we are going to send you back across to Tristan.
Well, I'm glad that the cubs are out, Lauren, and that you're getting to see them. I know that you tried a lot yesterday afternoon, so that's good news. When I heard a hyena calling from there, I quickly radioed Lauren to say to her she must go, because I'm sure that there's hyenas at the den, which is really cool. So I'm glad the little one's out. But as you can see, we're still with Ellies. This is a different bull Ellie that we've bumped into. We're actually on our way to Gari Dam, because there's apparently a herd of buffalo on the dam cam. So we're going to go and check the buffalo out and see if maybe there's anything milling about following them around. But then bumped into this bull Ellie that's having a nice little feed off of a termite mound, which is a common thing to see out here. You'll find a lot of animals will feed very, very close to or on top of termite mounds, just purely because the grasses that tend to grow there are far more nutritious than anywhere else. But you can see how on edge the Ellies are. It's very windy today already, which means that the elephants will not be hugely happy about it. It affects their hearing, and so they're not nearly as comfortable when it's windy as when it isn't. And that's why he's a little bit kind of wary. It's also the wind is blowing from us to him, so he could possibly be picking up our scent. But you can see how quickly he's moving away when the wind starts to gust towards him. So today is going to be a difficult day for game viewing, particularly animals that rely on hearing. They're going to try and seek out the thicker, denser areas just to try and get out of the wind. It's always when it's windy out here, it's the game viewing takes a little bit of a dip, so it's a little bit tricky. All right, Darby, let's leave his bottom and let's try and see if we can find these buffalo. So MJ, when male Ellies are pushed out of the herd, they generally are anywhere between sort of 12 and 15 years old. So basically adolescent teenagers. Sometimes you'll obviously get on each side younger or older in rare occasions, but it's generally between sort of 12 and 15 years. They're off on their own and doing their own thing. It must be such a confusing time for those young Ellies, because they grow up for 12, 15 years of their life in a very tight-knit social bond with the family unit, only to be then told to leave, basically, and then they have to go off on their own. And it's why you often find them joining with really big bull Ellies to try and just sort of feel a little bit more comfortable and to try and figure out what to do as a big male elephant. So kind of feel sorry for these young bulls when they're on their own. Even one of that size, I mean, he's a little bit older, he's probably in his about 20, but feel sorry for him because he's all alone now. And like I said, it must be hugely confusing for these elephants when they get chased out of their herds and have to go and live by themselves. I think there's a lot of parents out there that probably would want to apply the same effect to their kids sometimes. Dalen, I've never seen a splinter. Sorry, I just got an insect in my eye. You're right, bud. Sorry, Dalen, I'll get back to your question now. So we went over a stump and it flicked up and hit the side of the car, and David got a massive fright. I happened to turn as it hit and he was like how dangerous to be on the back there, Darby. Anyway, no, I've never seen a splinter in an elephant's trunk. The skin is incredibly thick, and so, you know, they typically don't pick up anything like that. Maybe micro splinters. I think you'd have to really look carefully in order to see that. But I've never seen a splinter or any sort of piece of debris wedged into their trunk or their teeth. And when I was in Kenya and at an elephant orphanage, we never really had any of those issues, although most of those ellies were mostly drinking milk. They weren't eating too many solids by the time we would kind of send them down to Tavo. But we didn't see too much of that. Like I say, ellies are intelligent and clever, and so they don't get splinters, I don't think. Right, now talking about splinters, it sounds like Lauren's got one of her little ones there that is busy chewing on a stick, and maybe it will get a splinter at some point.
Oh, these sticks are very, very interesting. I feel like I should maybe try one. The sticks are providing great source of entertainment. For hours, actually. But that will all change, I can assure you. These little hyenas will